resolution. I believe this is Mr. Boddy's. This is the issue. Do you want to? Why don't you explain it, Mr. Boddye, and
Sure,
then we can.
absolutely. So thank you, Madam Chair. So this one is basically between the election. So let's say last year, November 5th, and January 1st, when the new board takes office, that for lack of a better term, lame duck board could not take up residential, specifically residential land use cases. Because we're in a situation now, just to be honest, where we're dealing with some land use cases that were decided by the previous board. I'm fine with that. However, I feel like it's sort of a situation where previous appointees and previous decisions made by a previous board is now being left to a new board to take on, where we don't know all the context of what went on beforehand, the public input that may have been given, the public hearings, the meetings, what have you. And as I understand it, speaking to some previous board members that are, even before some of the folks that are still on here time, that was actually an unwritten rule. And that somehow got dissolved over time. I don't know if that was just someone, to Supervisor Canslin's point, a tradition that was never written, that then got forgotten, or if it was just for whatever reason the previous board decided they did not want to abide by that. I frankly think that, at least from folks that I've talked to, members of the community, members of my constituency, there's an appetite for seeing that if a new board is elected, or even if a large amount of folks are reelected and there's a new board that takes office, that you're not leaving a new board to sort of take on all these issues, or frankly, in the other end of it, have a board which is only going to be in office for another month or month and a half, ramming through, for lack of a better term, a lot of controversial land use cases.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Lawson.
Supervisor Boddye, thank you. I happily second your motion.
Madam
Well,
Chair.
assume that was a motion. Discussion?
And with that, I also would like to thank Supervisor Boddye for his leadership on this. As a new supervisor, I'm experiencing the challenges of trying to learn all of the underlying issues, if you will, with these very controversial land use cases that I have in my district. So I think this is a tremendous step in the right direction, and I applaud your leadership in putting forth this resolution. Thank you.
Okay, this seems like an easy one.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor
See
Canlin.
if I can make it a little bit more difficult. No, I'm joking. I fully support this. I do want to make the point, though, however, and we've got a couple years now. Election's not coming up anytime soon, thank goodness. To maybe also think about adding somehow putting some financial safeguards there. Because not only did the previous board, use your term, ram through some land use issues or cases, they also ram through some fiscal decisions that we're now going to have to deal with. Whether it's pay for staff, whether you agree with that or not, that's a $10 million decision that we're going to have to figure out how to budget for. So we've got a couple years to think about it, but just to kind of piggyback off of your great idea, I think there's also I'd like to put in some controls so we don't have the board going out the door approving all of these projects and the board going out the door spending all the taxpayer money. So I just wanted to add those comments. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Franklin.
Thank you, Supervisor Boddye, for this motion here. I do support it. I do want to make sure, and this may be a question for the county attorney or for Madam Chair, if there is a situation where we have to approve the sale of land or purchase of land in an emergency situation. I have no clue what that would be. Maybe it's a bomb shelter. Maybe it's a tornado shelter. Or will we be allowed to do that under this instance?
Thank you, Supervisor Franklin, Madam Chair. In working with Mr. Boddye to draft this language, I talked with him, made it clear that it's dealing with residential. Commercial would be able to come forward. And I put in the provision about consistent with applicable provisions of the Virginia Code. The Virginia Code requires this board to act on an application within 1 year unless waived by the applicant. So therefore, if the applicant refuses to waive, this board may be legally required to act in between the election and the end of the term.
Thank you very much, Ms. Robel.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Bailey.
Supervisor Boddye, thank you again for your insightfulness. And but I want to say also, going back to what Supervisor Canlon said, this also gives us an opportunity for what just happened today to think about our boards and commissions and the process thereof. I know that the staff was putting together a process for us to make these decisions and selections in a short amount of time. And so going back to what we've all said, that this takes time to really put the right skill set in the right places. And so I would echo what you're saying in terms of the time frame to allow us to make good and rich decisions in that regard.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Boddye.
Yeah, just to bring it all back around, thank you, Michelle, for that commentary, because I appreciate you putting that in there, because I was sort of aware of that, and you were masterful in your ability to collaborate with me. And I would echo Supervisor Canlon's point. I agree with that. I don't think that a previous board should be saddling a future board with a huge amount of financial constraints. Again, notwithstanding the actual decisions, I don't disagree with the decisions that were made necessarily, especially when it comes to paying folks what they're valued. However, I do caution boards making decisions that didn't saddle the next board, because some of you returned and you still have to face those consequences. So obviously nothing for us to act on right now in terms of that, but I would like to continue to have that conversation. Yeah. Thank you.
I think we're ready for a vote. Please vote.
Vote unanimous.